But I also don't think, and this is the kind of tragedy for Ukraine, I just don't think Ukraine matters enough to the various EU member states. I think they are not willing to risk confrontation or escalation with Russia over Ukraine. It's just, when it really boils down to it, the interests just don't seem to be there, particularly amongst the bigger players within the EU. Well, the trade for me was always a curious case because if you ask any kind of, I don't know, classical economist, they will always present trade as kind of this positive sum game. So a kind of area of interaction which should produce win-win outcomes. And I saw a lot of potential for that in this kind of triangle between the EU, Russia, and Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine had roughly the same level of trade with Russia as it did with the EU. And the EU and Russia are also very strong trade partners. So what I found kind of perplexing was this kind of use of trade for geopolitical ends, kind of using trade as a tool to pursue foreign policy. And both the EU and Russia were kind of, in some ways, equally guilty of this. And that, for me, was one of the real kind of head scratches of this relationship, and one of the areas which I think could have perhaps not solved the crisis, but if they were able to find some cooperative trilateral agreement to do with the trade, I think that may have pacified the security problem by creating this kind of win-win outcome. But I mean, quite quickly it became apparent that both the EU and Russia had very strict ideas around what they were using their trade for. It was both the kind of central component of their neighborhood policies. So yeah, it was this kind of use of trade as a weapon was one of the kind of areas which frustrated me perhaps when I was researching this. And I still think right now, I still think long-term kind of solutions to the crisis and trying to find rapprochement between all three countries in a way should be built on trade. I think that's the way to mend kind of hostilities, but obviously that currently seems some way off.